Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, comics we want to read, and everything in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we're doing the, sequel or prequel or whatever to Frank Miller's 300, which we did last week, called Frank Miller's Xerses. And it's also called, which is a more accurate title, the subtitle of it is The Fall of the House of Darius and the Rise of Alexander. So,
But that's long.
yeah, as me and John were talking about this, Xerxes isn't really like a main character too much in this.
No.
It's more about the rise of Alexander and it's more about the fall of the House of Darius and then the rise of Alexander at the end of it. So,
But I guess he didn't want to call it Persians.
yeah, he didn't want to call it
like
Persia.
It's not as the gripping a title. He's like, I need some like character name remembrance. Like what can I reference here?
Yeah,
that'll get people. Oh, that's right, Xerxes. He was the bad guy.
He's kind of weird looking, and people remember him from the last one I did. So, I think Frank Miller just really wanted to, continue the story. He must love this time period or something, because he went through a lot of, history in this, like many different periods.
Yeah, we got
hundreds of years.
There is a lot of time jumping and a lot of this is what is happening here, but let's go back over here first. And
yeah, although I thought it was funny because I looked for it in this one. There's no bibliography like there was in 300.
300, yeah.
So I don't know if this is all from the top of his head or or he just read so much about it that he's just like, I know it.
I know it.
It's fine. There's a little bit of that feel in this where it's just kind of like this happened. And it's super detailed. Then I'm just gonna skip 20 years. I don't remember that part.
Yeah, there's a skit there's when we have some of the kings. There's one king, and then all of a sudden we're on the third of that line. We're like, wait a minute,
what happened to 2?
Where'd 2 go? What's going on here?
2's gone. Where's 2? I don't know. 2 disappeared. But they just skipped 100 years in one swoop. But yeah, so we're getting ahead of ourselves. First things first. This is 5 issues long, and it's split up into the first 2 are a prequel to 300. Then the middle one is the one that should actually be Xerxes.
Yeah,
that one should have been called Xerxes because it's actually about him and his kingdom a bit. And then then the third one, or then the fourth and fifth one are more of the rise of Alexander and the fall of Darius or whatever. So, like we said, in the first one is actually it's pre Sparta, or not pre Sparta, pre 300, and it is about Xerxes' dad. And if you don't know, Persia and the Greeks have gone to war multiple times in this whole thing. I believe, as they say in this, the Battle of Troy has already happened.
Yeah, they mentioned that.
And so, they're like, those damn... Remember, they're pretty wily. Remember that horse at Troy?
Horse.
So I think they fought Persians there, and the Troy, the horse was the way they defeated them or whatever. So
yeah,
but they got defeated. I can't remember what. I don't remember how the story goes.
They put a bunch of guys on a horse, and they're like, "Look, we offer you this great thing."
Yeah, but was it the Greeks or the Persians that did it?
The Greeks did that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, the Greeks did that to them, and they were like, "Okay, we'll let it in the castle."
Gotcha. Now I know my history. So, so yeah, the first one is chapter 1. It's all about the battle of. Well, it's about talking about Darius, who is Xerxes' dad. Darius 1 is the guy that raised Persia to the ultimate. Power that it became. He kind of was the first one to start taking his battles on the road and conquering places and whatnot for Persia. And it takes place in 49 or 499 BC, it says. And so that's when officially the Persian Empire came up and everything. And then they start going to war with Greek after they conquer a certain amount of land. They're like, hey, there's a nice piece of land. It's the Greece Peninsula, and they're like, let's go do that. Yeah, let's go over there. And they come up against the Athenians in this one. The Spartans aren't even in this for the most part because they get mentioned twice.
Yeah.
Once because they like for this battle, which is before like we said 300 happened. They're called upon to help, but then they're like, oh no, we have our festival.
Yeah, fertility festival.
Yeah, so we can't do it.
Yeah.
And so like the Athenians are like those fucking Persians and I mean those fucking Spartans and their holidays or what like like yeah, they're badass, but they got a lot of holidays and shit, you know. They take off too much. So we see like basically this is the precursor to the Battle of Marathon. It's a battle that's happening where the Greeks are fighting off what they kind of thought were all the forces of Persia. Like they thought all of them are going to come here, so we'll fight here. And so they're fighting and they're winning. They like are able to pull the win out against the Persians, but then we hear that there's, actually a whole other boat section of the Persians that are all going to land at Marathon, and they're all going to take Marathon. I'm sorry, they're not going to take Marathon. This is the Battle of Marathon, but they're going to go take Athens.
Athens, yeah.
So they go to take Athens after Marathon. So this is where you get the how the marathon became a thing. He even says like the guy ran 26 miles.
Yeah.
And so like after the Battle of Marathon, which they won, the Greeks won. There's a couple characters in this. So there's the general of the Battle of Marathon, and his name is Miltiades.
Miltiades.
I don't know. And then there's a general or like some kind of warrior. He's like second in command.
So that's the general, and Miltiades is like kind of like obviously he's the head, but he also is like kind of like not quite the lead. He's not the leader that everybody looks up to. I think, for sure.
Yeah, it seemed like so you have Miltiades, and he's like the prep. He's the West Point graduate, right?
Yes.
And then you have
Captain
Themistocles, who is the actual like respected.
Yeah, he's the
war
captain.
Guy.
He's kind of like. I was going to say Maximus, but he's a general in Gladiator.
Yeah.
But
no, he is the not learned. He's like the I've been in the shit with you guys, and I've happened to go up the ranks.
Yeah.
So he's earned it. Like he's earned it through battle, whereas the other guy earned it from books or whatever. So they're both respected, but like Frank Miller draws Miltiades as he looks like a woman. I mean, the way like very feminine.
He's got very soft skin, so he has not seen a lot of like physical battle.
Yeah, but he gives him like eyeliner and stuff too. So like I don't know. To me, he looks more feminine than even they gave his breastplate nipples, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and the other guy, Themistocles, doesn't even wear armor or anything.
Yeah, he like takes off his helmet half the time, and they're like, put your arm back. He's like,
he's just that badass.
I like to feel the wind on my skin.
Yeah, I like it when the spears barely miss my head. So so yeah, that was like the Battle of Marathon. They kick ass, they win, but then
they have the one character. I think you said that you think Frank.
Oh yeah,
only because he was pretty badass.
There's a character that's too badass to be real. I think I don't know.
Askylos?
Askylos is his name, or Askylos. Yeah, it's Askylos. There's a weird AE in there, and so I don't know how it's pronounced, but I think it's Askylos. And so he is like the Ninja Turtle of all four Ninja Turtles in one.
Yeah, he's like their go-to. Like if they need like something special or like someone to like, hey, take out like those 12 guys over there by yourself. Oh, okay, I'm on it. Yeah, like that's what this guy is, because he's like the bad guy that.
He's like their special forces.
Yeah,
guy.
He's like, hey, you collect like weird weapons from people we've defeated and like learn how to use them. Like you want to, and he's like, yeah, I want to go test it out and see if I could use this.
Yeah. So like he just seemed too convenient to be a real character, like a real person or whatever in these histories. But and he had the most pronounceable name too. So like maybe he's made up. I don't know. And
without a bibliography, we were unable to verify.
Where are these sources? This is fake news. Fake news. All right. I can't verify this. Facebook should have canceled this and done a Facebook check on it. So,
but he is the badass character because he's got like a double-edged sword thing that he like kills a bunch of guys.
Yeah, it looks like Darth Maul. It's basically Darth Maul's lightsaber.
Darth Maul, yeah. but with
without
swords.
the lasers.
and then he's got like nunchucks that have like spikes on it or something.
Yeah.
And
He's always cutting people in half with whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
Like he with the double-edged spear, he like cuts a guy literally in half,
like
and then
perfectly in half.
And then with the nunchucks, he just like splits a guy's face in half, which was interesting. And so, like we said, the battle marathon, they take on all these Persians and they beat them, and it's like a big victory. But then they realize, oh shit, that was like just one little force. And what we actually missed was that they have like a giant force sailing towards Athens, and we've basically failed. But what we're going to do is we're going to send a runner. And that's, like we said, where you get how long a marathon is, why it's 26 miles or whatever.
Yeah.
26.6 or whatever the fuck it is. And so
we don't run marathons.
Yeah.
If you could
we read comics. We don't read.
If you could tell.
Now, if you want to do a marathon of comic reading, we can read 26 comics.
We're right there.
But yes, so we have like Themistocles and what is it, Skylos. They like make it back in time, and like the general, they make it back in time with a couple of the people. They make it to Athens, and they're like, "We're sorry. Like we've kind of fucked up. We didn't realize they had that big of a force." And they're on their way. We don't have anything we can do. And the general, what's his name? Miltiades. Sorry, these are weird fucking names. Sorry, Greeks, but your old Greek names are freaking me out here. So, yeah, Miltiades actually is like, you may like cut off my head. I have failed you or whatever. And they're like, stand the fuck up, son. Basically, they're like, we're not dead yet. Themistocles kind of like gets an idea in his head, and I know this is like for sure from Herodotus' histories. I mean, this is the book that basically all this is based on is Herodotus' histories, and so this is like where Themistocles gets everybody, slaves, women, everybody
in town that's basically not sickly and already
whoever can hold a shield.
Yeah,
they have them line up on the shore with their shields. Because that's all the Persians can see, right? It's just a sea of bronze shields. And like, no fucking way. Like, how is that possible? And then to like Darius, this is where you see young Xerxes. He's got his cool like early Michael Jackson's hair, like from Thriller or whatever. He's got a cool haircut. He's not bald like he is in 300.
Yeah.
And so but you get young Xerxes and his dad Darius, and they're sitting on their throne, and Darius is like, look at this, son. They're trying to like beat us, but there's no way that they have that many warriors. And then that's where like Xerxes says it's a trick. Remember that wooden horse at Troy? And he's like, oh yes, there's probably a trick, but we have to see. So like they send out 3 ships of people they don't give a fuck about. That's part of their army, and so the 3 ships are heading in, and they're like, oh, we're fucked if they land, but they have fire spears that they like shoot into the ships, so like the ships burn and everybody dies in there. But then Themistocles sends his assassin, his badass Skylos, with some spears that he picked up. What were the spears from?
I don't remember where they were.
It was from Marathon, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know who they were fighting that had these weird
But
spears.
they're another one of his specialty. Like, it's a cool weapon thing you're going to try out.
Yeah. And so basically, he's got 4 spears, and this thing that he throws the spears with is kind of like an adad, I think it's called, where like you have
the shorter spear, and then you put it in like the little like leathery kind of wrap, and that you use that to throw it further.
It's like a sling, but there's no sling. I described it to John earlier.
It's perfect.
And this makes the most sense to me. It's like those things you throw a dog ball with. So it's like an arm that helps you throw a dog's ball, like a tennis ball. But instead of a ball there's like a spear, a short spear. And so you kind of like whip it back and then whip it forward real quick, and you can get good like precise hits. And this is like one of the most original weapons, like from tribal people, like native or like indigenous people. They use this stuff still, like in certain areas. So, but it's like one of the first weapons that like humans ever invented or whatever. So, but yeah, Skylos, like, I guess learns how to use this real quick, and then he's like, while they're distracted by the ships burning, Skylos is like, "What's up, motherfucker?" And he like gets on a cliff above Darius and Xerxes and their ship, and he throws 4 spears down, and there's a 4 or 5, 4, I think. So he throws 4 spears down, and he actually hits Darius with one of them. So that's what I don't know if they actually know how Darius died. Like who? I don't think they know who threw the spear. So that's why I'm like, I don't think the Skylos was a real character.
But that's what. They make him badass. So he does that. He's surprised at him, and they're like, "Oh no!" And so they're going to like try to kill him. And as he's going away, the Skylos like just picks up his bronze shield and like you were saying, Ninja Turtles, get out of there basically, and blocks every arrow that comes at him, and just is like, bloop. Yeets out of there basically.
He goes into shell mode and and then uses it as like a sled to slide down the hill or whatever. So basically that's where like now Xerxes, that's why he wants his revenge, because these damn Greeks, they killed his father. So then and this is like the end of issue 2. Then we see like now it's Xerxes. And you think this is going to be the rest of the comic or something. Like we're going to skip after 300, we got to skip ahead, or I don't know. We'll see. But he goes to some place named Najd, Najd. I don't know how to pronounce it. Nahud. I don't know. So that's where he like becomes a god in this mythology.
Well, I did like the line because his dad says, like, his dad's like, we need to get out of here. Like, let's go back. And he's like, no, I will avenge you. And he's like, no, like, you have to, basically, no man can take on the Greeks, obviously. So, like, don't even try. And when he goes out into this long, like, basically trek in the desert by himself.
He goes on like a spirit journey.
Yeah, spirit journey. I did like the line because he says to himself, he's like, no man can take on the Greeks. Huh? Is that what does he say?
Is that a warning or a challenge?
Or a challenge, yeah.
And so then that's why he becomes a god, because no man can take on the Greeks.
I will be a god then.
So that he goes like the valley where gods are made, apparently.
And he meets the mummy.
He meets some weird mummy dude. Who he looks like a mummy in this, but then like after he shakes his hand in this part, I think that's supposed to be like an oracle or some shit. I don't know. But that's where he like becomes a god.
Looks like he's sucking his finger.
I don't know. It's weird.
I wasn't sure.
It's not his finger, man. No. But like so then book 3 now starts with, okay, now Xerxes has been reborn, and me and John thought this was really weird. Then like while they're saying how badass he is, like how he's gonna become, he's like, I am the greatest horseman, I'm the greatest marksman, I'm the greatest king, I'm the king of kings, I can speak all languages, I'm like the farthest reaching king in the earth. And then it just says like Xerxes is assassinated in 465 BCE. And it's like, why did you skip to that? But then with no other warning, and then it just cuts to Xerxes, like how he got killed. He was stabbed and everything.
Well, they're kind of saying they're like Xerxes assassinated, but they're not like quite sure of the exactly how it is. They're like, was it
poison? Was it we don't know.
Was it in battle? Yeah.
And so like we don't know, I guess, how he died, but I don't know why he did it like this, because that could have been the end of this issue. But basically, they go forward in time, then they go back in time. So like we said, it was 465 BC. So then we go back in time to 479. Now remember, folks, BC. The higher the number, the older it is. So
you descend in time.
We descended to 0 in BC. So so he went from 465 where he was assassinated, then he goes back to 479 when now Xerxes' kingdom is thriving. And
it's like
there's aqueducts and people have water and food and celebration and everybody loves him and Persia's awesome. Yeah. So Xerxes is basically like the badass, the most badass.
And this has got to be right around the time frame of 300.
Yes, this would be the time, like during this is when 300 happened. I wish I had written down or looked up when that was supposed to have happened.
The year, yeah.
But yeah, basically, and then this was like a weird thing. I thought, okay, this is where it's going to kick off. This is where we're going to see like maybe Xerxes conquering the world. Like that's kind of what I thought this was going to be, is Instead of conquering the Spartans, maybe it ends. Maybe the Xerxes book would end at 300 beginning. Like it would be a full prequel.
And just stop there.
And then stop after that. So it would be him conquering, the Scythians and the, whatever, all the other people, the Babylonians and all these other biblical time stuff. But no, it's very weird. He's like, in this, he's like, I want a woman. I want a wife. She must be perfect. You must find a perfect wife. So.
Oh, Sparta was, 300 was 480 BC.
480. So this, what did I say this one?
This is 479. So this is right after.
So this is right before.
Right before.
No. Right after.
Yeah, right after. So he
comes back from 300.
From 300.
And this happens. So he comes back from 300 defeated, but his kingdom is still like awesome. And I guess from that, he's mad. And he's like, fine, I want a woman now. I want a wife. And so he, I had to look this up. Because I remember this story from when I was a little kid and reading the Bible and whatnot. They go through the story of Esther, which is a biblical story about a woman who's of Jewish heritage who gets selected by the king. And then in the Bible, they never said Xerxes. And I don't think they ever said the king's name in the Bible. I can't remember if they do or not. But like the king selects her. And then she ends up being able to use the king to save her people from like a genocide again. And so that's like what this was about, which was weird. I thought it was a weird like tangent. Like why, I don't know why this happened other than to say Darius, or like future generations are going to be Jewish or something. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how it works, but basically, you have Xerxes picking a woman named Esther to be his wife. And it says she is a princess of Judea, which is what Israel was called back then, I guess. It was like the tribe that she was from. And so, he picks her. She's so beautiful. She can't be basically he wants to give her everything. And so part of that is she seems sad and whatnot. And it's because her people have been harassed in the area, I guess from other tribes or other people or whatever. And so he makes it illegal. He's like, no one will hurt them. And, they're all good. And that's like a big thing in the Bible. Basically there was going to be like a day where they hang the Jews and stuff and then, and persecute them. And then she makes it so they actually hang the guy that was planning that. And his name was Haman, I believe. And, so he dies instead of all these Jewish people, and then that's how Purim happens. Okay. So the day of Purim was invented because of that day where they're like, hey, let's celebrate. We didn't all get murdered. And so this actually says Xerxes kept his promise to her to save her people, but then there was also some kind of thing where he burned her village or I don't know. He said he burned her people's he freed her people, but he burned them to the ground her home.
Yeah, it was really weird. He was like, yeah, you guys can be free, but not here. This is my area.
The only thing I could think is maybe they pulled her from the region that they hadn't fully conquered, or maybe she was in another region that they had conquered, but she was Jewish. Then he's like, yeah, I'll free your people, but that means I'm going to conquer them, and then they can be free in Persia. Maybe that's what it was.
Maybe.
I don't know.
It's his own special Xerxes way.
There's no reference, there's no bibliography again. So this is
yes.
Frank Miller's interpretation of this, apparently. So, but she saved the Jews, and that's why they have the festival for life or whatever, which is Purim, is what they're saying in this. I am not Jewish, so I'm not 100% if this makes sense to Jewish people, as far as does it follow their history or not. But that's what this was about. Yay, Purim is this day, and we're going to celebrate, and that's what Xerxes is known for nowadays, I guess. Or that's the only thing I know. I looked this up just to check because I knew the story of Esther. They never mentioned the king's name as far as I can remember, and if it was, I knew it wasn't Xerxes. And so I looked it up, and apparently he had multiple names, and Xerxes was one of them. But yeah, this is like supposed to be the same guy.
So it's okay.
So at least on Wikipedia,
Okay.
it was biblically accurate or whatever. So and historically accurate as far as we could tell. So
It's interesting. Cool. He does that, but then it shows him like, yeah, they're all happy, man. But I still got a lot of places I want to conquer and kill people.
yeah. Then because you got to make the empire big, right? So you never have a big enough empire when you're a god king.
That's true.
It's never enough. So, then
that's the end of that one. You're like, okay, he's got places to conquer. Here we go.
Number 4, we're gonna see how Persia was so badass. And then it's the first page of chapter 4 is Xerxes dies.
Yeah, so we're back up to I guess 65 where he dies.
Yeah, 465 year BCE. Xerxes dies, and then it says it just kind of skips ahead 100 years, because it says in the next thing it's 336 BC. So we went from 365 to 336, or sorry, 465 to 336. So that's quite a jump.
Yeah. And now it's just it's like the house of Darius has continued. So Darius 1 was Xerxes' dad. Then we had Xerxes. And then Darius 2 was probably in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And now we're at Darius the third, who is the great ruler of Persia, the great, I guess he had the largest area of it.
Yeah, he had the biggest version of that empire.
He's known as the great not community
uniter,
great uniter, uniter, quote unquote, of taking over and all these.
This was when they even say this specifically, a new day dawns. Darius III becomes king and pharaoh to all the empires. So I think this is when finally they conquer the Egyptians.
Yeah.
And so they have multiple areas, parts of Africa, parts of I guess it would be southeastern, what's it called? Eurasia area, and then all of the Middle East, maybe some parts of India a little bit. I'm not sure. Maybe Kashmir, those areas. Okay. Not 100%. But I looked at the little map of it, and it was all of the Middle East for sure, and then Egypt and the area around that, and then trying to go into Macedonia, which is Greek area and stuff. So, so that's what this is. This is skipped 100 years from Xerxes to Darius, and then or Darius the Third, and then that's what the rest of this book is about. Darius the Third. So it's hey man, what happened to the 100 years in between? And then also basically this book to me felt like we're trying to get to Alexander, and then I'm gonna write an epic book about Alexander.
That's where we assume it's going. Yeah, because again, the title of this one was Xerxes, and we're like, oh, but he wasn't really in this that long.
Yeah, all he was a thing to show how Purim was made.
Yeah.
Could have been called Purim, and then
literally Xerxes did no actual fighting or any badassery in this.
No, well, I mean, he saved Jews.
Yeah,
so that was nice.
That was nice. He burned everything of theirs to the ground. But but you guys are free now. So
hey, he's a god king. That's pretty good for a god king. Not kill all of you.
To kill all the people.
He burned my stuff, but he let us live. So
all praise be Xerxes.
Yeah. I'm gonna name my kid Xerxes. So
so Darius the Third now.
Yeah.
He is ruler of all, and then someone tries to kill him.
Yeah, he is definitely at the what you call he's the last king, we'll say this, of the Persian Empire, and they're already they start off in the first page of this he's already almost being assassinated by poison, so he's on edge already. I don't know who's trying to poison him, if his kingdom is now, while he's the great uniter, there's just too many kingdoms at unrest now, because he's got too much land or something. The Egyptians are mad. Everybody's mad that you conquered them. So, a lot of people don't like you. So, but also they talk about now also in Greece, you got this Macedonian fella called Alexander, who's risen up and kind of conquered all. I mean, they say like, oh, he united all of Greece, but I mean, he conquered all of Greece.
He conquered all of Greece.
And then went to go fight Persia and conquer all of Persia. So that's what this is. This is the story of Alexander conquering the last line of Darius and Xerxes or whatever. So we see how that happens. Basically, it's just like an issue where it just goes straight through all of all the Persians. It's just there's no stopping Alexander at all.
No, every line or every new like group of Persians that comes up, it's like, oh man, the earth shuddered. Like there's hundreds of thousands of these Persians. There's no
and
way.
then the next panel is all of them dead.
They're all dead.
So there was no like tension building or anything in this. You're never like, I wonder if he's gonna win. I mean, I guess we already know, but there was tension building in 300, and we already knew that.
Yeah.
You were worried for the Spartans, like you thought maybe they were gonna live for some reason, even though you know in that they're not gonna live. But he even says like we're going to our death, like we're not gonna win. We're not gonna live. But it's like there's something about just the epicness of that one story. Yeah. That like one scene in that one area that like you're
saying there's a chance.
Yeah, exactly. Like
no, we're not.
Like 1 in a million. So what I'm hearing is there's a chance. So but this is just like it was weird because this is just a bunch of splash pages of people getting killed, and you have people who are in blue, generally, those are Persians, and then people who are in gold and red, those are Greeks. Yep. And usually the Persians are dying and the Greeks are surviving. So it was kind of weird. Sometimes I would get confused on who's fighting who, but then I would look and that guy's got a red cape. Okay, that's got to be the good guy. That's got to be the Greeks or whatever.
And that guy's got the red thing on his head, like headdress. Okay, that's got to be Darius III.
Yeah. So that's like basically it just Alexander comes and then it's just like killing Persians, like one after the other. They don't have like a specific battle, which is kind of would have been nice if there was like a specific battle where like they meet for the first time or something. And then it's like, oh shit, like this is the real deal. But I mean, they kind of allude to that, but like basically in the first time you see Alexander in battle, he like gets, he kills all the Persians and he captures the wife and kids of Darius III. And then the last issue starts with them being like, hey, do you want to be returned to him, princess? Like, you can if you want to go. And she's like, no, I love you, Alexander. I'd rather stay with you.
Yeah, I like it here better.
So it's like, and then Alexander also starts to look more like a god king than a warrior, we'll say.
Yeah, he
starts to look, he gets like the jewelry in his hair and stuff.
Yeah, he starts adding a lot of gold and silver to his... Like in the first time you see him, he's pretty much just military clad.
Yeah.
In his, his skivvies and like his like shield and headdress and sword and stuff. And you're like, yeah,
leather banana hammer.
Hammer. Excuse me. And then as it goes on, like he gets more and more of that like god level the great leader-esque aesthetics. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like. And then we see Darius is just, he's just beaten. And then there's like, I guess the last battle, like that's going to happen, it's at this place called, how do you say that? Gaugamela. So it was nice that he mentioned what the name was so I could go look it up if I wanted to. I did not look it up before this, but yeah, like this is, and he actually lays out. I thought this was going to be like a big epic battle scene.
The way he lays this out.
Yeah, he gives you the name. He lays out like, here's the Macedonians. There's only 40,000 of them, and then here's all of the Persians. There's 500,000 to 1 million Persians.
Yeah, and like the way he lays it out, he's like, oh man, like there's no way out. Like if Alexander's gonna win this, like it has to be because of whatever. And then the next thing he goes into, we're like, oh, it's going to explain, why Alexander is so quote unquote great is because he
has strategy.
Yeah. He's the first person to have like an organized, all on the same page military.
And they make it, I mean, he says at the beginning of this, like, Alexander is a student of Aristotle. So like from that, you're supposed to gather he is logic and reason. You know what I mean? Like that's why he's such a good tactician, is because he can logically figure out what the other person's going to do and then use that against them in war, and so like yeah, like that's what they allude to, but they never really show that. And then there's like the next page after it showed like this battle, like it looked like a little game of Risk or something where you had all the little armies set up.
Yeah.
And then the next page is like a bunch of guys standing around like talking about like, wait, how can we? No, that's nonsense. No, we'll be great. No, I don't get it. So I'm like, are these just other Greeks that are like either doubting him or?
Well, that's why I think that the one is supposed to be Alexander. Like
which one?
The one with the long hair.
This one. We're looking at it right now because I did not understand this page.
The guy with the long hair. That's like supposed to be him. That's supposed to be him explaining.
Oh, every time?
Yeah.
Oh.
From my understanding of the page, it was this is him like starting to explain to the troops of how his strategy works.
Let me explain this page to the reader because this didn't make any sense to me until you just
like if you just look at the page, like
okay, I see how you're supposed to read it then now. So to me, it looked like just a gaggle of people. Some look different and some look the same. Talking, okay, but this is actually a spiral, and we're supposed to go like that. We're supposed to read it from left to right in a spiral because there's one guy that looks the same, and that's supposed to be Alexander.
I believe so.
Yeah,
that's my understanding of it. Okay. That's only because it says it kind of explains like you're in the quote unquote war room, and he's like getting everybody on the same page, and then at the very bottom, the end of the page, like where you would end, it says the master at work, the genius strategist. And I was like, okay, so that was my take on it.
So for reference, if anyone wants to see this page, it's like in chapter 5, so it's in the last. I think it's right after they show the little Risk setup of the battle. So. Yeah, but it basically it just shows him being like, this is how we're going to defeat him. But he never says it. He never says like how, and then it says like, oh, like they learned how to cripple the chariots of the monster or whatever. And so like, I thought this was funny. The chariot looks like a big slug with like an evil face on it, but I don't know if it's made of concrete or something or rock, which would be a ridiculous chariot if it's made of rock. But the face of the chariot is like like an open mouth and like a dragon face or something. And then like as it collapses, because they realize like any 4-year-old does when you have a bicycle, you can throw a stick in between the wheels to make the wheel stop. So like they realize that, and then they stick their spear through the wheel, and then you see the dragon face is like, like it hits its chin on the ground and like closes its mouth, which I thought was weird. I was like, it's a weird design for a chariot, but whatever. So then we're supposed to gather from that picture that they got it all figured out.
Yeah.
And that's how they win. I guess they defeated all the chariots. I don't know, because he doesn't explain that. He like in 300 when he has like a battle important thing, he would say like and that's how we did it. You know, he would have narration over these big splash pages of people running and fighting. But no, on this one, we just get people running and no explanation. And you're like, okay, those are the Greeks because they have the Spartan headgear.
Mm-hmm.
And then like they're getting arrows at them, and then they throw their spears, and then they run over dead people. And then that just shows that they won.
And then it shows them with their helmets off, like, oh man, that was a great battle, wasn't it?
That was close. Man, that was a great battle.
Woo!
Yeah, and then it just cuts to like, okay, Babylon. Now we conquered Babylon, and then we conquered Susa, and then we conquered Persepolis. So like it's just Alexander going through everything. Through all these major cities, and there's no battles. It's just showing a page that you're supposed to understand. Oh, Alexander's here. That means they're conquered. They're now part of the Alexander the Great's empire. And so, and then we see Darius the Third. He is killed by assassins, and then Alexander like catches up to him, and is like, "Oh my, like." Like you said, you were kind of confused by this, but like he gives him like a send-off funeral, like the king is dead kind of thing, and then he talks to himself. Alexander does, and he's like who among them could ever fathom what we are, or why we do what we do. He's giving like this send off, and he even calls him like "sleep, my friend," and you were kind of like.
It's like,
what?
wait a minute.
Like they were enemies or whatever.
Friends? What's going on
I'm like,
here?
no, John, you got to understand. Even though he's his greatest rival, there's only 2 gods on this planet.
Oh, okay.
They're both gods.
They're both gods, so that makes them. He's saying that they're like brothers in like.
Yeah, in godship, godhood, or whatever. And
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's basically it. Then it's like, Alexander the Great is now king of what was once Persia.
And it says 1,000 new adventures to unfold. And it's like, did Alexander the Great live?
He died like a day after that.
Yeah, wait a minute now.
Yeah, didn't he die at the very end of the last battle or something like that? Like
I knew he dies
gets
young,
sick.
right?
He gets sick. Yeah, he dies like at 26 or some shit like that. So
well, I mean, okay, so maybe not too young for them, but
no, I mean, but like that's pretty young. He died before his dad died, I think, or something. So, yeah, then that's it. And it just ends right there. So. I was telling John, like, this felt like a middle book. Like, if he had another book called Alexander that came out very in the same style, I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
But like we said, what would that be? Because Alexander dies fairly soon after this. So
it's going to be called Alexander, but then it's going to be about
Rome.
Alexander dying and then Rome. Something.
Yeah. Alexander, the rise of the Roman Empire. So I don't know how that makes sense, but
we'll ask. We'll reach out to Frank. And
yeah. We'll talk when we call Frank. Well, hey, what's up, Francis? How's it going? I don't know what's Frank short for. Francis?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah. I'll call him Francis. Just like his mom. Anyway, so yeah, then it just ends, and yeah, I was telling John this. They have a pinup gallery. And this is where I was like, okay, like let's see the differences in like all of it's drawn by Frank Miller, and then there's a bunch of different colorists. So you got like this book was colored by Alex Sinclair, whereas the other book was colored by Lynn Varley. 300 was colored by Lynn Varley, and it looks completely different than this book. Is painted. It's not. If it is digital, it's really not. You couldn't notice it was digital. Whereas this, you're like, this is definitely digitally painted, and like let's see how the other people do. So you see Alex Sinclair, his pin up, you're like, yeah, it looks like the book. Then you go to the next page, you're like, oh, this is more Alex Sinclair. And you look down, it's like, no, that's by Dave Stewart. But it looks exactly the same as all this other
colors,
art.
Yeah. That's Frank Miller gave him, here's your color palette.
Yeah, it's 4 colors.
These are the colors you get to use.
Yeah. So I don't know why Frank Miller looks the same on from all colorists and everything, but I guess they're just like, we're going to let you do what you do, Frank, and we'll put gold wherever you say we should. And we'll put blood wherever you say we should, or something. I don't know. That's just it. I would think his art would look different depending on who the colorist was, but it doesn't really. So, speaking of that, what'd you think of the art compared to the 300 art?
Oh, I mean, this is definitely more along the lines of the Frank Miller, obviously, we have now.
And keep in mind, this is 20 years separated from 300.
Yeah.
So. And we all know, we don't need to hear everybody complaining. We all know Frank Miller is not the same Frank Miller he was
but
earlier.
To its credit, there are I have to say, in this one particular, so with some of the jewelry and some of the aspects of the character designs, there were a couple times I got confused. But overall, it looks fine. Like there wasn't I
could read everything.
Exactly. There wasn't any time where I was like, oh, that like they just kind of glossed over.
I will say that there was some literal like in some of the later, it's either in Dark Knight Strikes Again or in one of the other ones that we read. But there's like a dude that literally looks like a stencil or like a stick figure that's supposed to be a person.
Yeah.
And then like the colorist put different color for the pant sticks and different color for the torso sticks, and that's a person on
and
there.
And I didn't have any of that.
So none of that. Yeah, this actually felt like art was art. Like he went out and he did his drawing.
Even in battles where you can have a bunch of people on the page, so you could feel like you could understand why someone would draw like the first 20 people or 5 people in front, and the rest could be more shadowy. They didn't do that. All the characters were pretty defined, and then the only pages you had shadows was the whole entire army was in a shadow.
Right.
So yeah, like nothing felt odd with the art with that. So it was fine. Like,
the hardest thing to figure out, like you said, was, or when you were talking to me, was when at the very end you had Darius the God King, Darius the Third, who wore like all those, kind of Xerxes style jewelry, and then you also had Alexander, who got a lot of jewelry through the whole God
he was
King
like
thing.
adapting that. I don't know if he was adapting it because he was just
as he was conquering more.
or if he was like bringing in that culture. I don't know what it was.
I don't know, but they looked similar by the end. But Darius always had a red headpiece on.
Yeah.
So that's how I told him. I'm like, okay, he's got to have a red, little distinguishing piece of jewelry on his forehead or whatever. So, so that's how I knew who it was. So, and it was good that he distinguished it. Whoever, maybe it was the colorist who distinguished it. I don't know, but it made sense for trying to keep track of who everybody was, because a lot of the faces look similar when they're all covered in jewelry and they got the same helmet on or whatever, and or the same like garb on or whatever. So or they're shirtless or whatever.
Or they're coming out of a smoke or shadow. So that's all you see is the jewelry, and you're like, okay, well,
because a lot of it was like, oh, the person is in black, like totally blacked out, and the jewelry is the only thing you can see. She's like, wait, is that Darius or is that Alexander? I was like, oh, he's got the red headdress. Okay, that's got to be Darius.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, is this a awesome epic level 300 comic? No, I did not feel like that. It was. I felt like I said it was like if it was a transition comic, like if he's gonna come out with a third installment, that's gonna be the end of this run. Yeah, and that's gonna be Alexander or something like that or whatever. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he can figure out historically how to wrap this up, and it would be better if it was all one story like the first one was, because this just felt like it's skipping ahead to get to a point where we're gonna have it would make sense to me if this book ended with Alexander, like instead of showing Darius for the last two books, if it showed Alexander for the last two books rising, and then maybe show Darius the Third rising as well.
Yeah.
And then the third book, like the third full book, would be them fighting.
A great battle.
Them fighting until their last battle at whatever that place was that I said. That might have been, how I would have gone about. But I'm not Frank Miller, So, but yeah, this just felt like it's either the middle of a book series, but it definitely didn't feel like the end of it. It felt like it finished too quick, and there was like too much skipping.
I'm sure there will be a third in this series, at least.
If he feels like it.
If he feels up to it,
yeah. I mean, it'll definitely get published either way because he's Frank Miller and people buy it.
Yep.
So, but I didn't think this was like the weakest of his books or anything. Like, I enjoyed it for what it was. I didn't think it was, awesome. I didn't think it was terrible. It was,
in particular, like kind of like what you're saying, we were saying as far as like the first half was like the kind of that one particular story, and then led into.
I was down with the first two books about Marathon and everything.
Yeah, all of that I thought was fantastic. Actually, I was totally into it.
Yeah,
even especially more with the character we do not know was made up, the Ascaios. Yeah, because he was badass. Skylos. Yeah. He was badass. But then, as it got into Xerxes, and then it was like he's dead, and they're like, oh wait, we're gonna tell you a little bit more about
Esther,
and then he's dead again.
Yeah, it just felt like a weird the book 3 was just like, we're gonna talk about the Bible for a minute, or like it was like, I don't know, like it would be like Frank. This is what Frank Miller should do. Frank Miller's Bible, and him just pick a bunch of badass Bible stories about like barbarian tribes warring and stuff, and just having like a full out Frank Miller's Bible. I would totally buy the fuck out of that.
If Frank Miller illustrated Bible stories, badass Bible stories, I would buy the fuck out of that too. Yes. That would be really cool.
That would be cool. Because that was kind of like what that was. That was basically like Frank Miller does Esther or whatever, and I was down with it. Esther looked cool. Like she got all God queened up and stuff. It was cool. But yeah, so on that note, what would you give this one, John?
So again, I'm not really gonna, nothing about it I'm gonna complain about as far as like, I wouldn't read it again, or it wasn't my favorite or whatnot. But it wasn't bad. It just wasn't like great.
Right.
It wasn't,
it didn't have the pizzazz that 300. It didn't have the art pizzazz that 300 had,
Yeah.
and it didn't have the succinct story that really pulled you in
Yeah.
and made you root for the guys.
It started to, and then then
Yes.
it kind of petered off of that.
Yeah.
Did you catch there was a "This is madness" line in this one too?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there was one of the guys was like, oh, that plan, this is madness, and
Oh.
he was like, genius madness or something. I don't
Oh,
know, it
okay.
was silly. Anyway, I would say overall, like I said, good. It was solid. Like you were saying, it's kind of more of that middle story. So hopefully,
Maybe.
yeah.
It might not be, and then I'll be like sad, and it would. I think it would make it less to me if it's not a middle story. Like if a middle story or a third book
Frank
never
Miller,
comes out,
if we don't get a third one, we're going
down.
We're gonna
a
come
point.
back and bring this down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 6.
You give it a 6. All right, I'm gonna give this one a 5. Like I said, I didn't hate it. I read the whole thing. It was interesting. I didn't know where it was going. I wanted to find out what was going to happen. So it works perfectly serviceable as a comic. It even made me want to research some of the stuff. Like I was like, oh, is this real with Esther? And, like these historical moments. It was some of the storytelling was a little confusing at points where he would go ahead in time and then be like, Xerxes is dead. And then go back and be like, no, he's not. Let me tell you about Esther. And then like, oh, now he's dead again. So it's kind of like things like that. And then we're going to jump ahead 100 years or 100 plus years to Xerxes 3 and, see what that happens. So it was kind of, it was just so all over the place as far as the story goes. There wasn't like a total story. It was like he's telling you moments of this empire's history and then doesn't quite give you what you want to lock in those cool moments. So like the first 2 issues, it locks it in with the Greek Battle of Marathon and like how they defeated them at Athens. That was cool. And if they had done the same at the end of this with that battle and like really showed like how they won and like, because I want to know, there was 40,000 Greeks and over 500,000 Persians. How did they win other than putting a wood spear through a chariot slug thing?
It was 500. It was 500,000 chariots.
But there's only 40,000 of them. So what do each of them have? 4 spears or whatever?
They reused some spears.
Oh, they reused them? Okay. So yeah, I just want to know like what the battle was. And I wish if he had done that, I think that would have put like a real cap on this to be like, yes. And that's how Alexander became Alexander the Great or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
that's true. Explain like him, like that one panel of him talking about it and then showing the execution of like all of the things that he like strategized and did. That would have been a cool way to end this. And then it could have, lead into something. So.
Yeah. And so I think it would have felt like it wouldn't have needed a third book, or it wouldn't have like wouldn't feel like it was a lead into a third book if it capped it like that. If it just had here's this big battle of whatever with a G, I can't remember what it was. And Gamalgama or whatever.
Gilgamesh.
Yeah, not Gilgamesh. And so yeah, like if it had actually showed that battle, I think it would have put a nice cap on. The book starts at one place and has a big battle. Then there's stuff in the middle that's a little disjointed, but it's like the history of. And then here we are at this other big battle, and that's like that's where Alexander won the Persian Empire, kind of thing. If they had done that, that would have been I would have probably given this a 7, but it didn't do that, and it just kind of left it hanging. And if there's not a third book, I'd be disappointed. I'll go down to a 4. But yeah, I'm gonna give this one a 5 just because of that. Just because like it was fine, but it left me hanging, So, and the art was nowadays Frank Miller, so it didn't look bad if you don't mind nowadays Frank Miller, but it's not old school Frank Miller. So, that's how he looks now, and you have to accept that. Whether you like it or not, it's not my favorite Frank Miller, but that's how he draws. So, and he's the artist, so we had to deal with that. But I was surprised, like I said, from the different colorists, all of them look the same. So apparently that's just how he's going to draw, and that's how he looks when colored by anybody other than Lynn Varley. So, on that note, if You guys have any comments or questions, you can email us at Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word, at gmail.com.
And don't forget about our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channel. We've got exclusive content coming out here pretty soon. Don't forget to check that out.
And Twitter.
Oh, and Twitter. Yeah, that's for some I forgot.
And next week, I think we're going to read, I believe, Identity Crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a book about, is it like a murder mystery that's Justice League based. So take off your history hats and put on your hero hats and read that one along with us, or just hear us spoil the fuck out of it for you. And until next time, we'll see you again
On the next one.
Bye. Well, folks, hope you enjoyed that episode.
If you did and you'd like to follow us on social media, our Facebook is Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, and our Instagram is @Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more recommendations to add to your weekly pull list.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.